Is this videoing okay? Okay. Catching all those. All right, cool. Ready to get started? We got just a few more slides to finish out this section. Has anyone done the quiz yet? Nope. Okay. Quiz 1 has been posted. Not too difficult. Just kind of some information. Quiz 2 might be a little more difficult with fill in the blanks and kind of making sure that you know what it is rather than just multiple choice. So there's a little balance there. The quiz 1 was kind of multiple choice and just to kind of that you know some stuff. But the second one is going to be more kind of fill in the blank, listing, you know my tests. And so we're kind of in between there where we're trying to make sure that you know the information rather than just getting lucky and selecting B. Remember we left off with this clear cutting. Not a good practice because there's no vegetation to keep this soil in place. We also have an increase in rainfall, and we have water erosion on the side of that hill. If I turn this on. So in order to kind of facilitate that or kind of mitigate a little bit of that, they will strip cut. It just means that they're going to cut in strips, so that way that they're minimizing some of that erosion, kind of like contour cropping, sort of, maybe. And then that also allows these trees to grow back, and we're not losing a whole entire ecosystem in one swipe. This can be a little bit more tedious. You have to get some extra planning in there to make sure that you have your strips and your rows and where you're going to harvest and how that's going to go back. For anyone going into wildlife and fisheries, you'll study how much the tree grows and things like that. This selective cutting is going to be more difficult because now you have to drive your equipment in around these trees, and if you cut one over, then you're like, all right, well, we'll just cut the whole thing, and next thing you know, if you got me or Uncle Si from Duck Dynasty on one of those backhoes, you remember that episode? It's all over the place, and so make sure that your operators know what they're doing before you send them into the woods. But it can be a little bit more difficult when you're trying to do selective cutting. Intensive skilled management. The way they used to do it was with mules, and that was labor intensive as well. And hopefully this.
We lose
there we go.
an acre and a half of forest every second. There goes another one. There goes another one. 15 billion trees.
15 billion trees.
This drone gives us a way to fight back. This was invented by a company called Biocarbon Engineering. They're in Australia. It is a tree planting drone. It fires a tree bullet into the ground, right? Biodegradable bullet container, soil, nutrient-rich solution, little plant, driven by AI. So it's fired precisely at the depth it needs to go to, in the exact position it should grow in. This drone can plant 100,000 trees a day. They're building an army of 10,000 of them. They can plant 8 billion trees a year. Technology is finally getting to the point where it's making a serious, serious difference in this fight.
So that's some of the cool things that can be done for replanting when you can't get, when we were on that hillside. Now, you got the equipment up there to cut that down. Replanting it might be a little bit different. So this is one way that, and plus it's going to take a while to hand plant. Anyone ever done like an Arbor Day thing where they had to go out and hand plant? That takes a while, doesn't it? So this is one way that they can get up to that hillside, less labor, and still get a some sort of return and benefit added back to the environment. Just a couple of kind of the on-site damages that can happen from soil erosion, which many of us are aware of. We're gonna lose our topsoil, and when we do that, the soil beneath it has a lower available water capacity, CEC, less biological activity, and reduced nutrient availability. So if y'all remember the mass of an acre furrow slice being from a 6-inch depth. So if you were to take that mass of an acre furrow slice and just wipe it off the hillside or off your field, what's left is, now we're getting into our lower A depth. And then you continue to do that and you wipe another 6 inches off over the course of time, and you're left with a B depth that doesn't have the nutrients because they're all in the soil and all out the end of the field. So we want to keep our soil in place. It's got all our nutrients. It's got all our money tied up in it because we've been fertilizing it, liming it, and putting all these inputs in. We need to make sure that it stays on our field. It can spread some plant diseases. Our soil structure is going to deteriorate. And when that happens, our plants can be uprooted. And we're going to get some gullies formed. Eventually, over time, sheet erosion or rill erosion will turn into gully erosion. And once it's a gully, you're done. There's not much you can do about it. So, the whole purpose is soil and water conservation, and that's what we're trying to do in this class. There you go. Once that happens in your land, now you've lost all this potential productivity. It's disconnected from each other. And now you have two separate land management areas. You cannot manage them the same as if they were together. Once this happens in your field, like, you're done. That's done. It's going to take some extra, you're going to have to land level. You'll have to employ some measure that is going to end up changing the dynamics of your field in order to fix this. So if we can minimize that water movement across our field and out of our field, where we can keep it on site, the potential for it to infiltrate into our soil is going to help us stop having to stop what we're doing and come back and fix our soil. So this is a picture where we have this windblown soil that has now covered these tomato plants. That's not a very good environment for that. They're just covered up. They're losing oxygen. It changes the whole dynamics of their root system. So we also want to stop our wind erosion too. Off-site damages. The soil that leaves our field with all of our nutrients in it is going into the water. When it goes into the water, we get a dissolution. Those nutrients are dissolved as total dissolved solids, and that causes eutrophication. They can contain those toxic metals and organic compounds and end up with the hypoxia zone. Everyone's kind of seen these things before, right? I know I'm not really bringing any new material to the table yet, but just to kind of set the backdrop of these are the things that we're trying to stop. All of this, what we have is way up in Minnesota, all of that nitrogen ends up funneling out the mouth of the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico, and nothing happens here. It's dead. It just takes the oxygen out of the water. Fish can't breathe. There's nothing we can do about that once it happens like that. It's really difficult to get back to getting this not so dead, because there's just no oxygen. How do you oxygenate that? How do you oxygenate a large water body like that? You don't. And I had this idea about putting a water wheel in, and here I am, some master's student, talking about this thing, and we've got scientists working around the clock, and the USDA and all these other, and they haven't come up with it yet. And here I am, hey, let's put a water wheel in. Like, you don't think they thought about that? So we're kind of stuck. The only thing that we can do is minimize the movement of nutrients in our water supply. That's our job, to minimize soil and nutrients into the water supply. Other sediment damage, we can smother our crops. Also, when we increase the sediment flow into our waterways, that water's gonna rise more. And it's gonna start eroding away it's gonna start eroding away the top of the bank, or it's gonna overflow the banks easier. And then it's gonna settle those sediments down. Some turbidity, reduced photosynthesis, we're gonna degrade our fish habitat, which eventually upsets the food supply. We're gonna get dirty fish, and it's gonna influence their life cycles. So I posted all these notes online also. I just did that over lunch, whatever my lunch was. And then you have something like that. That's not fun to fish, right? You catch that, you put it in the back and probably picking up and leaving, because not bringing that home to clean. Some other sediment damage was they fill in behind the dams and then fill in and becomes impassable, and now our ships can't get through because we've got more sediment at the bottom. And although our our water level may have risen, we also have less space for that water to be, so the ships are now dragging the ground, and they cannot get through, and then they run aground. We can get some ugly stuff like this from all the sediments. That is in China, the Yangtze River. We can have some sedimentation like this that changes the water flow and structure of our stream. Again, here is the Yangtze River. All the soil, you can see this settling down, and so I explained this in my soils class. So we're starting in Minnesota, and we pick up all this soil along the way from Minnesota all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, or wherever this is, and it's picking up sand, silt, and clay, and it's churning, and when it gets to the end, when that unstoppable force meets the immovable object, everything stops, and everything settles out right there. The sand will settle out first, then the silt, and then we'll have the clays that settle out even more. We start to get these alluvial fans, and it just disrupts the ecology of that system. It also changes the shape of our coastlines as well, which is again going to disrupt the ecology of that system. Some of these windblown sediments, we've all heard of the Dust Bowl. That was a big deal back in the 30s. I was not there at the time. I know some of y'all might think that I was, but I wasn't. Neither was Dr. Earhart. So we can get sandblasting that damages our fruits and vegetables. Like all these things are causing us problems in our productivity. We can breathe those into our lungs. Maybe not now because we got 1 and 2 masks over our face. And they become a health hazard, and you just can't get away from it. That particulate matter is in the air, and you're breathing that in, and now you have dirty lungs. And then some of the costs, $27 billion, $17 billion. All this stuff costs money to clean up. We don't have enough money as it is in our government. And then so now we have to spend some of this extra money to kind of clean it up so that we can continue to have our quality of life. It's going to impact our maintenance of productivity. We have loss of organic matter and water holding capacity. And right here, when the erosion is greater than the rate of soil formation, and if you remember from soils class, it takes a really long time to form soil. But we're also losing 4 billion tons of soil each year. We're certainly not making 4 billion tons of soil each year. So the 3 mechanisms of water erosion are going to be detachment. First, it has to break free from the soil aggregate. Then it will be transported down the slope, and then finally deposited at the bottom. We have the terminal velocity that can be almost as much as 30 kilometers an hour. Now that's pretty fast. Like 45 miles an hour. This one little raindrop that hits the ground causes that splash, causes that detachment with so much force. It'll detach the soil, it destroys our granulation, and then it can cause the transport of the soil. So now we have splash, boom, just like a bullet hits the ground. You can see the explosion come out, or a meteor, and that moves over, and we have all those. Pretty soon all that detached soil and the water runs down and ends up detaching it from the soil, and then if it's in the solution in the water that's running by, it's easier to transport. Transportation, that's how the water gets from the top to the bottom. So smaller watersheds, so we had this delivery ratio, which was the amount in the stream or delivered to the stream versus the amount eroded. Probably not going to go over that too much on this exam. I was just trying to get through this erosion part. And only 5 or 10% of that makes it actually makes it to the sea. So 5 or 10% of all that stuff that got collected up makes it to the mouth of the Mississippi as far as sediments go. Sheet erosion is when all of the soil moves except for, we have these little pebbles that were still sitting there. And so all the water just slowly but surely erodes around that. Rill erosion, you get these little small rills and gullies. We can fix this kind of easily. If we see this at the end of the growing season, you know, we can till that, but what happens to our soil structure when we till? Does it improve or decrease? It goes down, correct. So we're gonna have this problem again next semester, or next year. We'll have to keep doing this unless we plant something to slow that water flow down. And then finally we have gully erosion. So little rills form this channel, and you can't till that. You can't till that up. The tractor won't make it across, you get stuck, especially if I'm driving. Because I'm like, I can make it. Watch. And eventually you have this big hole in your field, and all your soil's going with it. All this soil, you got a little mini waterfall going there. You can maybe make a pond. What surprises me the most is I don't know that this happened over time. What's that?
It was just sudden.
I believe it is sudden.
It's terrible.
What's that?
It's scary.
It is scary. That's a landslide.
You could have been out there.
Look right here. That was planted. Look right here. Planted, planted, planted. How do you get the planter that close? So this whole, look, you got a couple of plants down here too. So this producer said, you know what, cool man, we're going, planted. Comes out the next day and a portion of his field is just gone. Oh crap. Not only is this crop, that's, you know, 2, 4, 6, about a planter's worth of rows gone. So that's yield, that's soil. All this is eventually going to go next, right? All this is about to go, and all of that. And so how do you go about fixing that? Let's just talk about it. Anybody got any ideas about stuff? If you wake up in the morning and go out and look at your field and this happened, what do? Anyone, anything.
Call somebody.
Call somebody. How would you stop the water from flowing over this edge? It's a very simple, it's something real simple.
Divert it.
What's that?
Divert it.
You could divert it. How do we also stop, what, if we know it's gonna flood, what do? What do they typically start making?
Levees.
Levees?
Sandbags.
Sandbags. That's the first thing you're gonna do is go sandbag this whole thing to stop that water from getting this. And then The water will eventually move into here and then start to soften this, and there's nothing holding that back, so the force of this will come in. So first thing we're gonna do is do some type of levee. We're gonna try and divert this water from coming into this little part right here. But then what? Now that we got all that fixed, and finally it doesn't rain anymore, I don't know where this would be that it's not gonna rain right after that. This looks like Mississippi. It's gonna rain in a couple of days, now what? Now we've gotta find the source. Looks like it came from over here. And we'll have to divert that so that it doesn't come down this path. We can push it somewhere else. That's cool. How you gonna harvest this? No, you're gonna stop way back here, right? Like you're stuck this whole edge. So all of this, even over here, is now lost. Yeah, all right, that's fine. So we did make it out of the field. It's been a horrible year. Luckily, no one died during any of this, or no one got seriously hurt. And then what do we have to do when we come back in after this is all out and dried? We're gonna have to do some land leveling here, aren't we? We're gonna need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So now we've got to adjust our whole field to make sure that that water doesn't run here. And then we still got the problem of this eroding. It's like, holy crap, what do you do? So being able to understand where your water is coming and where it's going, and your soil type and your structure is going to help you minimize this. This farmer didn't have a good day today. All right, so this is going to end what you need to be studying for the test on the 11th, except for 12. But anyhow, this is the end of the notes that you need to be studying. And when you take quiz 2, you're gonna be like, holy crap, I'm gonna need to be studying some more. All right? Now, everyone's favorite part, let's discuss some of these topics. Josh, am I good on that? We're right there. Anna, is Anna here? Enrique. Now, you and I talked last night, right? You good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ashton. Is Ashton here? Okay. Miss Chloe, is this,
I actually changed it.
okay?
It's the drip irrigation.
You want to do drip irrigation, cool. Troy's got the coal ash spill. Isaac, is this close enough for you? Like this is somehow you'll figure it out and make it. Miss Kitty had the subsidence of organic soils in the Florida Everglades. Hannah, irrigation. Do you know what kind of irrigation? Not yet? That's okay. And I think Bren Wilhite wanted to do vertical farming as well. Is there anybody else who knows their topic right offhand that's like, absolutely?
Green roots.
Green roots. Is that right? Masters? Okay, cool. Okay. Hey,
Conservation tillage.
conservation tillage. And it is possible for more than one person to have the same topic. I'll address that in a moment. I need to move this over here so this thing can capture what I'm saying. I'm listening, Nathan.
Irrigation
Pivot irrigation. Okay, who's next? John.
Variable rate fertilizer.
Variable rate fertilization. Who else?
I was gonna do irrigation.
That's okay. We're gonna put it in there. Hewitt. Okay, who else? Knows for sure. Yes, ma'am.
History of water erosion and conservation practices.
Who else? Knows for sure. All right. Who else is like 60% sure? What you got, brother?
Natural water filtering,
And you are
Williamson.
Williamson. So natural water filtration. All right. Anyone else? Like, this is the discussion part. Like, if you're kind of like, I thought about maybe doing this or thought about maybe doing that, and I don't really know if that applies. No one? Mackenzie?
I do like the hypoxia in the Gulf.
Okay, is that something? Okay, so,
That'd be interesting.
all right.
That's
All right, so I guess there's some other things that I should probably say about the presentation. I need to leave that in there. So there's some other things to say about the presentation, and this is that the presentation should introduce a topic. Okay, so who was I talking to? Was I talking to Hannah? So Hannah wants to do irrigation. She was like, I don't know, irrigation is such a broad thing. And that's okay, because we've got, how many people wanted to do irrigation of some sort, doesn't matter. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 people that want to do irrigation. I want y'all 4 to get together and decide how you want to talk about this broad topic. So she's got drip irrigation, you've got pivot irrigation, and you wanted to do.
Not for sure yet. I thought about the water use efficiency.
Okay, water use efficiency, and so here's how I would see that working. Hannah introduces irrigation as a whole and kind of some of the issues that are overarching with irrigation. And then Nathan comes in and talks about pivot irrigation, or maybe you mention irrigation and you do polypipe. And then Nathan comes in and does center pivot. And then you come in and do drip irrigation. And then you follow up with, these are the water efficiencies of polypipe, pivot irrigation, and drip irrigation. So do you understand how that kind of works? And now y'all won't be giving a presentation together. Each of you will give individual presentations, but they will be collaborative to cover this topic. Because you can't do irrigation without talking about drip irrigation or center pivot. And if Hannah does that, she takes away everybody else's thunder. No, it's okay. What I'm saying is, no, because we had this thing, because irrigation is so big and so broad. So it's perfectly okay. I had it planned this way. And so Josh wants to do vertical farming, and there's another student who wants to do vertical farming. And so those 2 students will get together and make sure that they cover that topic very well. Not that they get the same presentation, but vertical farming takes up a lot of time. There's no way you can explain all of vertical farming in 7 minutes. There's no way you can explain all of irrigation in 7 minutes. No way. But your 7 minutes, and your 7 minutes, your 7 minutes, and your 7 minutes covered what she would have to cover in an hour. Irrigation. But you've got 7, you've got 7, you've got 7, you've got 7, and y'all all collaborate together to talk about what it is you want to explain about irrigation. That make sense? And then Mackenzie, if you want to do the hypoxia zone, and who's got variable rate fertilizer? So you two together can talk about how variable rate fertilizer minimizes nutrient loss into the waterways, and that's how we can slow down that's how we can slow down the hypoxia zone. Does that make some sense? And so then we have green roofs, and who else wanted natural water filters? You did. So y'all two can talk together about how you want to go about, because green roofs are going to be a natural water filter, right? And there are other options for natural water filters. So you might introduce the topic of natural water filters, 1, 2, and 3, overarching issues. Ms. Hannah comes in and kind of expands on your presentation of water filtration with your green roof presentation. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's an individual project, it's an individual presentation, but you will be working, you don't have to, but you could be working with someone else to bring that together. Is that making more sense? So is there anything up here does anybody have any interest in GIS other than Isaac? Not really? Okay. Anyone else interested in nursery management? No? Are you going to do conservation practices? No? Okay, so we've got Michaela. With and so you can see the link between you and Cassie, right? She's going to introduce the history. You're going to introduce the present and possible future. Sound good? Do you want the hypoxia zone? And it might just be that that's like picking 3 of the biggest hypoxia zones in the world. Because it's not just at the mouth of the Mississippi. There's got to be one at the mouth of the Nile too, right? Okay, so there's a couple of things. Like you get like 2 or 3 topics that you can expand on. 5 to 7 minutes. And then if you find that you want to continue on with your topic, once you get into it, because if you're anything like me, when I start researching something, I want to know everything about it, and then I only have 7 minutes to give this presentation, and I spent way more time learning about the extra stuff rather than what I did here. And I kind of go, you know what? I gave my 7-minute presentation, and I wish I had more time. I know. No one would ever think that you'd like to spend more time standing in front of a group of people talking about a subject that you just learned about. But it's possible. And so you can take what you've learned in your early presentation, and if you would like, you can expand it into the presentation at the end of the semester. So that's always an option too. Like, it's just about creativity and figuring it out, and you get to do whatever you want. I just want you to be comfortable talking about a subject that you're passionate about. All right, we've still got a few more things we need to fill in. Is Joan Misty? What you? No? It's okay.
Maybe types of nursery and greenhouse management.
Is that your major? Is that something you're passionate about? What's your top, like, what do you want to tell people about when you go home? Like, this is what I'm doing.
I'm going into vet school, but understanding the growth practices would help.
So what about, do you want to be like Dr. Fenewald and talk about overgrazing? Do you want to talk about nutrient loss and pastures? How can you relate that? How can you relate going into vet school to soil and water conservation? Regenerative agriculture? Anybody want to talk about that?
How many of that are like nutrient loss in the pastures?
And so then, since you're thinking about the nutrient loss from regenerative agriculture, and we got variable rate fertilizers, y'all might email and link up and say, hey, I'm going to talk about this, and now you're in with Mackenzie, and now we've got, are you doing row crops? And then we've got pasture, we've got fertilizers and nutrients in pasture that are going to impact Miss Garner's overall topic. And that's how those things get tied together. And that's going to give you some more information and more structure to your presentation. Because right now you're like, holy crap, what am I going to talk about for 7 minutes? Y'all will collaborate together and come up with some more information that will give you the direction to get to the 5 to 7 minutes that you need. Annalyn? Nothing yet? Okay. Who else am I missing? Van Bibber.
You come back then.
Sure. And I think we're missing Williams. So we've got a few more things. We've just got a few people to kind of tie in. We got Miss Larson, Miss Pippin, Mr. Van Bibber, and Williams. Is that everyone else? Everyone else is kind of locked in. All right, so y'all be thinking about those super hard now. Like, email me, talk to me. Like, what do you do? What's your major? Ag business, okay? And so, soil and water conservation. Are you interested in any policy? No? Okay, that's cool. I'm trying to figure out how we can talk about ag business with nutrient loss, soil loss, water quality, things of that nature. Okay. Who else was I missing? Annalyn, what was your major?
Pre-vet.
What is it? Pre-vet. And so kind of going in somewhere along with what you've got going on, where we got nutrient loss in pastures and how soil management, regenerative agriculture is that even of interest to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's something along regenerative agriculture. And do y'all two know each other? No, y'all haven't had any classes together yet. That's okay. Kind of link up and talk together about that. Cover this topic. Cover this topic of regenerative agriculture and nutrient loss in a pasture grazing system in Tennessee. Right? Sound good? Ooh. I'm pretty sure if y'all went and asked Dr. Fenewald how you could talk about that, he would have some good information and some things to talk about with that. Someone else said they were okay with nursery management. Was it? Okay. So we got Van Bibber and Williams that are still missing topics. All right. No sense in beating our heads into a brick wall. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on here? No? All right. I will try and get the emails that need to be linked up based on this, and be working on this. Get started. Like, just start. That's all you got to do. Start. What do you know about this topic? What are the 3 things you want to talk about that you can introduce? What is the overarching issue with soil and water conservation? So 1 minute for each one of those. There's an introduction, and then there's 3 topics that you're going to talk about for, I don't know, 1 minute and 15 seconds or whatever. Next thing you know, you're at 5.5 minutes already. Make it a little bit longer, because you know you're going to get up here and you're going to be like me, that's all jacked up on coffee. You're going, brrr. Okay? So practice. Slow your speech down a little bit. Make sure that the students can understand it. Make sure that it follows a flow. That's the purpose of the exercise, so that you get comfortable standing up here and talking about a topic that you're interested in. Go ask Dr. Best about tomato production and what he's doing up at the Southwest Ag. That's cool. That's soil and water conservation. We're not irrigating that stuff, are we? That water just is in a big circle, isn't it? Have you been there? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't been up there.
No? Ask Dr. Best. I know some of y'all have, with the hydroponic tomato growth. That's soil and water conservation. Everyone good? All right, I think that's going to be that. If you have any questions, email me. I want to talk with you about these things and give you direction and guidance and have you thought about this and do you know about that? And what about here? And okay?